September 2018. Phoenix, Arizona. Storage auction. Dan Dotson, the auctioneer, was about to close the door on Unit 347 when he noticed something. A single man standing at the back of the crowd, holding up a crumpled $100 bill. "We've got $100. Going once, going twice. Nobody else bid. Why would they?" Through the half-open door, Unit 347 looked like a disaster. Cardboard boxes stacked haphazardly. Old furniture covered in dust. Random junk piled to the ceiling. The kind of unit that screams somebody's worthless stuff they abandoned. Sold. To the gentleman in the back for $100. That gentleman was Marcus Thompson, 32 years old, unemployed, down to his last $340 in the bank. He'd driven to this auction on a prayer, hoping to find something, anything, he could resell to pay next month's rent. He had no idea he'd just bought a storage unit that would make him $8 million richer. But here's the thing that makes this story absolutely insane. Marcus almost didn't bid. He almost walked away. He almost let someone else buy it. And if he had, he'd still be broke today. This is the true story of the luckiest storage auction purchase in history. But to understand just how miraculous this moment was, you need to know how desperate Marcus's life had become. Marcus Thompson grew up in Detroit. Working-class family. His dad was a mechanic, his mom was a nurse. They taught him the value of hard work, saving money, being responsible. Marcus did everything right. Graduated high school, got an associate degree in business, worked his way up from stock boy to assistant manager at a big box retail store. By age 29, he was making $45,000 a year, had an apartment, a decent car, a girlfriend he was planning to propose to. Then everything fell apart in the span of 6 months. First, the retail chain filed for bankruptcy. Marcus got laid off with 2 weeks severance. No warning. Just found out he applied everywhere. Sent out 200 resumes. Got maybe 15 interviews. No offers. The job market in Detroit was brutal. Then his girlfriend left him. Said she couldn't be with someone who had no direction. That hurt worse than losing the job. His car got repossessed because he couldn't make payments. His landlord started eviction proceedings. His parents offered to help, but they were barely scraping by themselves. Marcus made a decision. He sold everything he owned, packed 2 suitcases, and bought a one-way bus ticket to Phoenix, Arizona. He'd heard the economy was better there. More opportunities. A fresh start. That was in June 2018. 3 months later, Marcus was living in a weekly motel that cost $180 a week. Working odd jobs through temp agencies. Barely surviving that he'd started watching storage auction shows on TV in his depressing motel room. Shows like Storage Wars, where people bought abandoned storage units and found valuable stuff inside. Marcus thought, maybe that's my way out. Buy cheap units, resell whatever's inside. It's basically gambling, but at least it's something. He spent 2 weeks researching where the auctions were, how they worked, what to look for, what sold well on eBay and at pawn shops. The rules of storage auctions are simple. When people stop paying rent on their storage units, the facility can auction off the contents. Bidders can only look inside from the doorway. No touching, no going through items. You bid blind, buy the whole unit, and hope there's something valuable inside. Most units are garbage. Old clothes, broken furniture, worthless junk. But occasionally, very occasionally, someone finds gold. Marcus saved every penny from his temp jobs. By September, he had $340. Enough for 2 weeks of motel rent, some food, and maybe, just maybe, enough to bid on a cheap storage unit. The auction was on a Saturday morning. Marcus got there at 7 a.m. even though it didn't start until 9. He wanted to see everything, study the units before bidding started. There were 12 units up for auction that day. The crowd was about 40 people. Lots of regulars who did this professionally. They had trucks, hand trucks, moving equipment. They looked confident. Marcus felt like an imposter. He had nothing. Just the $340 in his pocket and a desperate hope. The first unit went for $800. Too rich for Marcus. The second went for $600. Still too much. Units 3 through 11 went for anywhere between $400 and $2,000. Marcus didn't bid on any of them. Couldn't afford to. Then came Unit 347. The last one of the day. The auctioneer opened the door. Everyone crowded around to look inside. Marcus could see cardboard boxes. Lots of them. Old furniture. Some kind of filing cabinet. Random household items. Nothing obviously valuable that he heard whispers from the professional buyers. Junk. Not worth it. Let's go get lunch. Most of the crowd started walking away before the bidding even started. The auctioneer looked annoyed. All right, folks, last unit of the day. Let's start the bidding at $200. Silence. $100. More silence. People were literally getting in their cars. Marcus's heart was pounding. This was his chance. His only chance. If he spent $100 on this unit and found nothing valuable, he'd be down to $240. That wouldn't even cover 2 weeks of motel rent. But if he didn't take the risk, what was he going to do? Keep working temp jobs forever? Sleep in his car? He raised his hand, holding up the $100 bill he'd been clutching the whole morning. We've got $100. Going once, going twice. Sold. Marcus had just bought his first storage unit. His hands were shaking as he signed the paperwork. He had 48 hours to clear out the unit completely. The facility manager handed him a key and said, "Good luck, kid. You're gonna need it." Marcus walked to unit 347, rolled up the door, stepped inside. The smell hit him first. Musty. Old. Like nobody had opened this unit in years. That he stood there, looking at the mess in front of him, and thought, what have I done? But he was committed now. He started digging through boxes. The first box, old clothes. Worthless. Second box, kitchen items. Plates, cups, silverware. Maybe worth $20 at a yard sale. Third box, books. Old paperbacks from the 1980s. Worthless. Fourth box, VHS tapes. Who even has a VCR anymore? Garbage. Marcus spent 4 hours going through boxes. His back hurt. He was sweating in the Arizona heat. And he'd found nothing worth more than a few dollars. He was starting to panic. This was a huge mistake. He'd just wasted $100 he desperately needed. Then he got to the filing cabinet in the back corner. The IT was a big metal filing cabinet. For drawers. Locked. Marcus tried to open it. Wouldn't budge. He shook it. Heavy. Really heavy. He went to his car and got a screwdriver from his emergency kit. Came back and pried open the top drawer. Inside were hanging file folders. Dozens of them. Full of papers. Marcus pulled out the first folder. Old tax returns from someone named Robert Morrison. Dated 1995. That he pulled out another folder. Bank statements. From 1998. That more folders. More old paperwork. Insurance documents. Medical bills. All from the 1990s and early 2000s. This was exactly the kind of boring junk Marcus had feared. He was about to close the drawer in frustration when something caught his eye. One folder at the back was thicker than the others. And it was labeled differently. Instead of a year or a type of document, it just said, collection. Marcus pulled it out. Opened it. Inside were plastic sleeves. The kind people use to protect valuable documents or collectibles. The first sleeve had a comic book in it. Marcus wasn't into comics, but even he recognized the cover. Superman. Old looking. Really old. That he pulled out his phone and Googled. Old Superman comic value. The results made his heart skip a beat. Vintage Superman comics could be worth thousands of dollars. In rare cases, hundreds of thousands. He looked at the comic book more carefully. There was a number on the cover. Action Comics #1. June 1938. His hands started shaking. He Googled Action Comics #1 value. The search results felt like a hallucination. Action Comics #1. The first appearance of Superman. Last sold for $3.2 million at auction. Marcus dropped the folder. In no way. No possible way. He picked it up again, hands trembling so badly he could barely hold it. He looked at the comic book through the plastic sleeve. The cover was faded. There were some creases, but it looked real. He went through the rest of the folder. More plastic sleeves. More comic books. Detective Comics #27. First appearance of Batman. Marvel Comics #1. First appearance of Human Torch and Submariner. Captain America Comics #1. Batman #1. A Superman #1. Each one in its own protective sleeve. Each one from the late 1930s or early 1940s. Marcus Googled every single one. The values he was seeing couldn't be real. Individual comics worth $50,000, $100,000, $500,000. If these were real, if they were authentic, he wasn't looking at a few $1,000s. He was looking at millions. He sat down hard on the concrete floor of the storage unit, surrounded by worthless junk, holding what might be the most valuable comic book collection ever found in a storage auction. Then he did the smartest thing he'd done in months. He stopped touching anything, locked the filing cabinet back up, rolled down the unit door, and went straight to his motel room to research. He spent the entire night on his laptop, learning about comic book authentication, reading about the most valuable comics in the world, finding out where to get items appraised. Point one name kept coming up: Heritage Auctions in Dallas, Texas. The biggest comic book and collectibles auction house in the country. Marcus called them first thing Monday morning. "Hello, Heritage Auctions. How can I help you?" "Hi. I think I found some really old comic books. I need them authenticated." "We can certainly help with that. What do you have?" I think I have an Action Comics #1. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Sir, that's an extraordinary claim. Action Comics #1 is one of the rarest comics in existence. If you genuinely have one, we need to see it immediately. Can you bring it to our Dallas office?" "I don't have money for a plane ticket." Another pause. "Send us photos. High resolution. Front cover, back cover, inside pages. If it looks authentic, we'll arrange transportation." Marcus went back to the storage unit. With hands that wouldn't stop shaking, he carefully photographed every comic book in the collection, sent them to Heritage Auctions. 3 hours later, his phone rang. "Mr. Thompson? This is Brian at Heritage Auctions. We've reviewed your photos. We need you to bring these items to Dallas immediately. We're sending you a plane ticket and arranging secure transportation for the items. These appear to be genuine Golden Age comics, in remarkable condition. Are they worth? How much? I can't give you an exact valuation without in-person authentication, but if these are authentic, you're looking at a multi-million-dollar collection." Marcus had to sit down. "How many millions?" "Mr. Thompson, I don't want to get your hopes up, but potentially $8 to $10 million. Maybe more at auction." The next 2 weeks were the most surreal of Marcus's life. Heritage Auctions flew him to Dallas. First class. He'd never flown first class before. He'd barely flown at all. They put him up in a nice hotel, gave him a per diem for food, treated him like he was already a millionaire. That a team of experts examined every comic book in the collection. They used special lights to detect forgeries, examined the paper quality, checked the printing techniques, compared them to known authentic copies. Every single comic was real. The collection had belonged to Robert Morrison, the name on all those old tax returns. Heritage Auctions did some digging into public records. Robert Morrison had been a comic book collector in the 1930s and 40s. Not as an investment. Back then, comic books were considered disposable kid stuff, not valuable collectibles. He just liked them, kept them in good condition because he was careful with his things, that he'd stored them in that filing cabinet for decades. When he died in 2002, his storage unit went to his daughter. She paid the rent for a few years, then fell on hard times and stopped paying. The unit went to auction, and Marcus, broke and desperate, had bought it for $100. The authentication process took 2 weeks. When it was complete, the head of Heritage Auctions sat down with Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, I have good news and great news. The good news is that every comic in this collection is authentic. The great news is that we believe this collection will sell for between $7.50 and $9 million at auction." Marcus couldn't speak, literally couldn't form words. "We'd like to feature this collection as the centerpiece of our next major auction. Our commission is 20%. After commission, you'd clear approximately $6 to $7 million, depending on final bids. Is this acceptable to you?" Marcus nodded. What else could he do? The auction was scheduled for December 2018. Heritage Auctions promoted it heavily. The Lost Collection, they called it. The story of the broke guy who bought a storage unit for $100 and found millions was everywhere. News articles, TV interviews, comic book websites. Marcus became a minor celebrity overnight. The night of the auction, Marcus sat in the Heritage Auctions house in Dallas, watching as bidders from around the world competed for his comics. The Action Comics #1 alone sold for $3.1 million to a private collector in Japan. The Detective Comics #27 went for $1.80 million. Other comics sold for hundreds of thousands each. When the final gavel fell, the total was $8.20 million. After Heritage's 20% commission and taxes, Marcus cleared $4.9 million. From a $100 storage unit he almost didn't bid on. Marcus Thompson, who 3 months earlier had been living in a weekly motel, with $340 to his name, was now a multimillionaire. But here's the thing that makes this story even more incredible. Marcus didn't blow the money. He didn't buy a mansion or a Ferrari or go crazy. He did something smarter that he paid off all his debts. Bought his parents a house in Detroit. Set up a trust fund so he'd have income for life. Invested most of the rest conservatively. Then he started a business. A comic book and collectibles store in Phoenix. Used his story to attract customers. Became an expert in comic book authentication and grading. 5 years later, that business is worth over $2 million by itself. Marcus has become one of the most respected comic book dealers in the Southwest. He still goes to storage auctions sometimes. For fun now, not out of desperation. He's bought probably 50 more units since that first one. Never found anything close to what was in Unit 347. Most have been full of junk, but he says he'll never forget standing in that hot Phoenix storage unit, covered in dust, broke and terrified, holding a folder full of comic books he didn't recognize. "I had no idea what I'd found," he told an interviewer. "I just knew I'd taken a risk when I had nothing left to lose. And somehow, impossibly, it paid off." When people ask him for advice, Marcus always says the same thing. "The only mistake you can make when you're at rock bottom is giving up. I had $340 left in the world. I could have saved it, played it safe, kept working temp jobs, and hoping something would change. Instead, I bet $100 on myself. On hope. On the chance that maybe, just maybe, something good could happen." And it did. The storage facility where Marcus bought Unit 347 has a plaque now. It says, "Site of the $8 million storage unit. Sold September 2018 for $100. Tourists take pictures with it. Marcus goes back there once a year on the anniversary. Stands in front of that empty unit and remembers what desperation feels like. What hope feels like. What luck feels like. Because Marcus knows something that most people don't. Luck isn't just random chance. Luck is what happens when you're willing to take a risk, when you have everything to lose." He almost walked away from that auction. Almost didn't bid. Almost let someone else buy Unit 347. But he didn't. He took the shot. And it changed his life. The professional storage auction buyers who walked past Unit 347 that day, they're still doing the same thing. Buying units. Reselling junk. Making a modest living. None of them are millionaires, because they saw what Marcus saw, a unit full of garbage, and they made the safe choice. They walked away. Marcus made the desperate choice. He bet on hope. And sometimes, when you're willing to risk everything on hope, the universe rewards you $0.8 million worth of rewards from a $100 bet. That's not just luck. That's proof that sometimes, when you're at your lowest point, when you have nothing left to lose, that's exactly when you should take the biggest risk of your life. Because Marcus Thompson did. And look where he is now. If this story inspired you, don't just watch and leave. Hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. We share incredible true stories of ordinary people who took extraordinary risks and changed their lives forever. Stories that will make you think differently about luck, timing, and the moments that change everything. Drop a comment below and tell me. If you had $100 left to your name, would you bet it on a storage unit? Or would you play it safe? Let me know. And if you're going through a tough time right now, remember Marcus's story. Sometimes the biggest wins come from the riskiest bets. Subscribe now, and I'll see you in the next video where I share another unbelievable story of someone who gambled everything and won.